Track and field is inside. It's the indoor season, and we're back to talk about it once again. This is Ron Mann, the head coach of the Cards. I'm Sean Moth. Good to see you as always. And Bloomington's almost become a home away from home. You send a small group in some rather unpleasant weather, I might add, but
Right.
coaches and some multis and that add a couple marks. I think you guys are up to 31 for Big East qualifiers.
Yes, we're narrowing in on that number for the Big East, and we feel very good about where we're at this point in the season and going into the final couple of weeks before the Big East.
And it is just 2 weeks. We talked with Dale Cowper last week how you blink and this season is over, and that kind of puts a premium on how kids prepare week in, week out, and not that athletes will take a weekend off, but you really can't afford to do that in the indoor.
No, you do have to plan some weekends up, but those have really got to be well planned and well positioned. And when it's time to get a performance, it's time to get a performance, and then you go back to work for a couple of weeks. And that's really where we're at, is where we're polishing off those last numbers, getting ready for the Big East Conference.
17 on the women's side have qualified to compete in the Big East and 14 on the men's side. And as we look ahead to this coming weekend, we've got 2 weekends left. The first weekend is going to be back in Bloomington, and from what you've told me off camera, it's a really good gathering of teams.
It's really a good gathering of teams, and it's going to be great competition. It's a Friday-Saturday meet with preliminaries on Friday, and then your finals coming back on Saturday. So very similar setup, both physically in terms of the area and the track size, 200-meter bank, and the runways and so on, and as well as the 2-day meet. So it very much replicates what we're doing in the Big East.
And I think we're probably to a pretty high level of familiarity with the venue, as the Cards have made their way to Bloomington a time or two already this season. We'll talk about it next week, obviously, but as we look ahead to that final weekend before the Big East, that's a huge weekend. The Mayo Invitational up in South Bend, and then some of your athletes will head out to Blacksburg, Virginia. What's the pacing like in terms of the athletes that will compete this weekend and the athletes that compete that following weekend in terms of similarities?
Well, what happens, truly what you do is you look at each individual athlete. Some athletes need the weekend off prior to the Big East. Other athletes need the consistency in performance week to week. And so we truly tailor that to the individual athlete. So what you'll see as athletes move not only this weekend, but into that final weekend, you'll see some taking a weekend off and some going ahead and competing.
If you look ahead to the NCAAs, this is kind of the midway point of the indoor season. Are there maybe a few names that have had a particularly good indoor season to this point?
Well, certainly Keisha Lockhart has come alive, and she had a really big jump a couple of weeks ago that was a good mark, but she's really going to, I believe, come alive. And, I would say the throwing group in general is doing some great things, as well as many of our male athletes, certainly Michael Edwards and his consistency and so on. But the team is just really coming together as a group.
31's the total. Hopefully when we talk next week, we had a few names to that list. Coach, best of luck, safe travel to you and the team.
Thank you.
For Ron Mann, I'm Sean Moth. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk next week right here on Cards TV.